What's going on, friends? How big does your Harley-Davidson engine really have to be? We've all heard the old term, there's no replacement for displacement. Well, in a lot of cases, that's really true, but honestly, how big does your engine have to be? Can we do more with less? Or do we really have to have these insanely large cubic inch Harley engines? Large displacement engines really do have a lot of good points to them. One being, they produce a hell of a lot of torque, which is awesome, and that's pretty much why you buy a Harley, is you want all that torque. Now, going with very large displacement engines, this also gets extremely expensive in the fact that you're going to generate a lot of heat, you got to get that heat out of the engine, and then on the flip side of that, you're also going to need a lot of machining and a lot of supporting parts to actually deal with that amount of torque that that big engine's going to produce, which that pretty much makes your cost go sky high. Not everybody wants some huge monster engine. We want something that's reliable, that also produces excellent horsepower and torque, and not only that, it's not going to break down on you all the time, and you're not going to have to do a bunch of extra maintenance to it. So guys, let's take a look at some engine setups that aren't going to break the bank, they're not going to break your wallet trying to maintain them, but these setups are still going to get you in that range, kind of that golden range of horsepower and torque when it comes to a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. Before we get too far into the video today, if you enjoy the video, please don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. The golden range of horsepower on a Harley-Davidson engine really depends on what motor you're running in your bike, but generally speaking, twin cams and above, you're really wanting to hit about 85 to 90 horsepower and generally about 100 foot-pounds of torque. That really is kind of a sweet spot, and honestly, anything a little bit above that, that's just even better. Now, obviously, that's pretty easy to achieve with a twin cam, but if we're talking about the Evo, you're really pushing it on a set of stock cases when you're getting up to about 90 horsepower on one of those, and Evo, it can muster close to 100 foot-pounds of torque, but once again, stock cases, take it easy. Now, if you're running the Milwaukee 8, doesn't matter if you have a 107 or a 114, you're already right in that sweet spot without having to do anything. And of course, just the stage 1 setup and maybe a mild cam, that'll put you right up there where you want to be. And that doesn't matter even if you have the 107 or the 114. Now, with twin cam engines on the 96 and the 103, you can bolt on a 110 kit to either one of those motors. But if you're running the 88, S&S does allow you to get up to a 100-inch motor, or you can bore your stock cylinders out to 98 inches. So 98 to 100 inches, that's about the best you could do on a twin cam 88, unless you're willing to actually split the cases and put a bigger crank in it. Once you do that, you can pretty much do whatever you want. So with the Milwaukee 8 having this 131 now, everybody really just started to think, man, I gotta go bigger. 131's where it's at, no matter if you got a twin cam or a Milwaukee 8, you're all shooting for that 131 cubic inches. Now, while the 131 cubic inch is just absolutely killer for torque, you might be surprised that the larger displacements really doesn't do a whole lot in the horsepower department. So guys, to kind of get an idea, let's take a look at basically an otherwise stock 103 twin cam that's just got a cam swap in it, and then an otherwise stock 107, well, it's not really stock, it's a 103 that's got a bolt-on 107 with the cam in it. But let's go ahead and take a look at these two engines, these two similar setups, and kind of get an idea of what the horsepower and the torque difference can actually be with a little bit larger bore. So here we have a 103 twin cam with a fueling 574 cam. This is coming in at 97 horsepower and 107 foot-pounds of torque. Very, very respectable, and for sure nothing to complain about. And honestly, the Butt Dyno would be very, very pleased with these numbers out on the street. Now let's take a look at another 103 twin cam that's been converted to a 107 with a comparable exhaust, but except this bike actually has a Wood TW777 cam. Now remember I mentioned horsepower would be pretty close, which is 100 horsepower compared to the 97 on the 103 with the cam. Now in all fairness, the TW777, this is a very high torque cam, and honestly a majority of the lot of torque is going to come from that cam. And by the difference in torque, we're talking 117 foot-pounds of torque compared to a 107 on the 103. Now, this is due to a little bit of the added displacement. So, even at 107 cubic inches, we're still hitting that golden range of horsepower, being just over 100 horsepower, but we are also hitting a highly, highly desirable 117 foot-pounds of torque. Now guys, that is really hard numbers to beat. And we're talking, this is a simple bolt-on setup. We're not going too crazy with boring the cases, putting these monster cylinders on it. We're keeping it otherwise basically a stock compression ratio, just a little bit larger bore and a cam. Not a whole lot of difference between the 103 displacement and the 107 displacement, except for about 10 foot-pounds of torque. And honestly, a lot of that torque we could really attribute to the wood cam. So guys, so far we're not seeing a huge performance increase when it comes to just displacement alone with a decent cam. Well, let's take a look at an engine that's got a little bit more performance goodies in it, and let's just see how it compares to a very mild-mannered 107 and 103 that are basically stock compression and otherwise nothing than a bore increase in a cam. Kind of a bit surprising here, we have an S&S T111 crate engine putting down 104 horsepower and right at 111 foot-pounds of torque. Not exactly the kind of numbers I would have expected here either. So guys, that just kind of goes to show that even with compression, a bore increase, and a bigger cam in it, your money is really not going all that much further when it comes to these larger bore increases. But to be fair, I would say those numbers were a bit soft, given that this bike was actually run with Screamin Eagle mufflers. But even with the Screamin Eagle mufflers, I would have really expected to see the torque a lot higher than that. I was really honestly surprised that the 107 put more torque down than the S&S engine. But at the same time, the S&S engine is going to have an S&S cam. And if you remember the 107 that I showed you had a Wood TW777 cam, which is a monster high torque cam. Now, as I mentioned, keep in mind, none of these engines, well other than the S&S, really had compression over stock. They had a little bit of a bore increase on the 107, but we're talking a stock 103 that had basically just the fueling 574 cam in it and nothing else. Well, of course, exhaust system and a tune. But as you can see, these huge bore increases, they really don't do a whole lot for you. If you got a 103 or bigger, yeah, you can just put a cam in it and you're good to go. If you have a 107 or a 114 Milwaukee 8, a cam's really all you need. You don't really have to go crazy with these huge bore increases. You start getting these large bore increases on there, yeah, sure, you're going to gain a little bit more torque, but at what cost? How much money are you going to put into that? I mean, if you got the money, great. But not all of us got that kind of money to sink into it. And if you're going to sink that kind of money into it with a big bore increase, you'd better be doing the right things with the supporting parts for cheap, well, it's not really cheap insurance, but it's good insurance, so that you don't blow it up and you're left with a big smoldering pile of wasted money. So guys, if you're looking to have some work done to your bike, don't let somebody talk you into some 120 cubic inch kit on your bike when you could really honestly accomplish your goals with basically a 103 or maybe 107 or 110 and just a good cam. You can save yourself a lot of money this way. Because guys, at a certain point, bore sizes just become bragging rights. You're going to be getting plenty of horsepower and torque out of just the right cam and maybe a little compression head work. So guys, my honest opinion, we could do a lot with the smaller displacements and just the right cam. And if you want to take it a little further, throw in some head work and maybe a little compression. But I want to know your guys' thoughts. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Do you like to go with a more mild, more I guess sane bore size versus going to some monster big bore kit like 120 plus cubic inches? But guys, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. But yeah, guys, that's all I've got for you this week. I appreciate you sticking around to the end of the video. Guys, if you enjoyed the video today, please don't forget to drop a like on the video and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. But until next week, guys, you stay safe on the streets, ride smart, dodge those cars, and I'll catch you guys back here next week. Thanks for watching.